Anybody got a prescription, yeah, for this love pain? Anybody got a pill like a pop for this?
Hello, and welcome to another edition of All the Way Live with the Byrds. I am one half of your dynamic duo. I go by the name of Dr. James Byrd, and you know this beautiful woman right here. She is my lovely and talented wife, and she goes by the name of
Dr. Angel Byrd.
And together we are the Byrds. And we just want to welcome you in for another ride on All the Way Live. Get ready. Y'all know how we do. Keep it real. And go ahead and say hello and to the people and
Welcome to All the Way
what's on your
Live
heart?
with
What's
the
going on?
Byrds, and I just want to thank you guys for tuning in. Before you get started and before you get into it for yourself, click that button and push share for another couple's life to be blessed, like yours is getting ready to be blessed. So that's all I ask of you today, is to share. And so yes, we're jumping on here a little later, but we just don't want to miss any of it. We're so busy, but we're determined that we're going to give you information that's going to help your family and help your marriage to stay solid. That's our goal. That's our goal.
All right. So you've been watching the past few weeks. We have been talking about 10 marital hardships and how to overcome them. The first week we talked about financial struggle, challenging children, and immaturity. Then we talked about unfaithfulness. Last week we talked about unfaithfulness and moving. Mm-hmm. All right. And we are on to number 6. All right. And so number 6 is sickness. All right. And we can forget how much we really rely on one another until somebody breaks down physically. No, we haven't.
Oh, we haven't.
We stopped with moving.
All right.
Thank you, sweetie.
You're right. Can't take it.
Sickness. If one of us, one or the other, person gets sick, especially in a serious way, where the other one has to pull majority of the weight, take care of them. Mm-hmm. Or if you have children in the home, something seriously happens. We're not just talking about just a common mm-hmm. flu or or something like that. Mm-hmm. But when something really happens, concerning sickness, we've experienced different things, and in our almost 29 years of marriage, and so how can sickness be a real hardship on a marriage that makes it hard for people to overcome?
I mean, it can happen in several ways. It can happen not planned. And when I say not planned, meaning somebody has a heart attack or somebody just gets, say, cancer or gets sick in that type of way, even though it's still a hardship and it's very difficult to go through that whole experience. But there's other ways that people get sick in a relationship, like eating really, really bad, not taking care of their bodies, becoming overweight, where it starts affecting you in your sex life and your sex drive, and then you end up...
take them one by one. So you kind of listed several, so let's take them one by one so we can dive into them.
So let's just go with the ones that we do to ourselves. So the ones that we do to ourselves are things that you're watching your body, you're watching, especially with a male, your stomach starts, protruding and growing. And so what happens during that time, it starts affecting your whole makeup in the body, because it's not supposed to happen that way. A man's stomach is not supposed to grow like that. So what happens is high blood pressure comes, diabetes come, and when those type of things come, it starts affecting your sex drive. And we've counseled so many couples concerning that situation. And when your blood pressure is up like that, it causes the male not to be able to perform correctly. And so over time, say we may start out with empathy, we may start out understanding, but now we're talking about a year or two into the marriage, and then she can't be satisfied and he can't perform. Now she's frustrated. And those are things that you can correct. by changing your eating habit, exercising, getting out, walking, quit eating all the junk food and all of the processed foods and things like that. So that you can change. If you have type 2 diabetes, guess what? You can change it. That's not a life sentence. You don't have to keep things like that. You don't want to end up on dialysis because guess what? It's another hardship, and so we have to really start thinking about, is a selfish move because this is what I want to do and what I want to eat, or are you going to think about the family? And so that's one of the ones that
But what about when the sickness challenges the person so seriously, like say diabetes, something maybe, they can't function like they used to, and now one of the other person, let's say it's the husband's body breaks down, and now this wife is faced with, okay, we've been married 5 years and we're still relatively, we still got 40 years of life left, and so am I literally gonna have to be taking care of you for the next 40 years? And I remember one time getting a DM about that. Somebody not really, this is not what I signed up for. What do you say to a person like that?
I mean, yeah, you did. I mean, you didn't sign up for it, but when you stand at the altar and you say sickness and in health, sickness or in health, and so if he didn't show up or she didn't show up with those issues and it happened over the course of time in the marriage, then you vowed to stay with a person because of those reasons. Those wasn't exit signs, and so you signed up for it whether you believe you did or not. And the painful part is about it is that some people go through the marriage never being satisfied. And that right there is really hard on your mental ability to be able to be what you need to do to your spouse.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that hurts, you tell me what you think about this, but I think the sex part of marriage, I think we put, I think even a greater emphasis because of the sensuality of society. Well, if you're single, you're not supposed to be having sex anyway.
Absolutely.
And so there are people who go, supposedly you're supposed to go for years and years and years and years and years and years without having sex.
Yeah.
Okay, and so now
but not in marriage.
Right, so now the person you're married all of a sudden falls into some type of sickness. And we're talking, we said something like, a diabetes.
Yeah,
what if something is not health related? What if something happened? What if they got into an accident? What if something happened that was beyond their control? Do you love that person enough to still stay committed to a loving relationship when sex, especially maybe sex in the traditional method,
may not be.
But
there's other methods, and it just depends on the pride level. Because what I've heard, in counseling and different women say, if he loses his job or he gets something in his body or whatever, sometimes the pride rises up. Like, I don't need no help. I'm not doing that. That ain't the way it's supposed to be done, and that whole fight is going on. You can't really afford to get into your feelings or operate in pride when you're going through something like that, because you're still married to someone else. It's not about you in the marriage. It's about each other in the marriage. And so people become just selfish, when it comes to those type of things. And it's like, okay, you need to figure it out. How do I make them happy in this marriage? How do I do this still? You need to have conversations. What is it gonna take? What does that look like for you now that I'm dealing with this? And so have those conversations. You have to have them.
And we're faith-based counselors, we're Christians, and so what is it gonna look like? The responses to that needs to be godly.
Yeah.
That means it doesn't look like, well, since you can't satisfy me in that area, allow me to get satisfied in that area outside of the marriage. No, not that type of foolishness. That's now you're not staying true to the covenant that you talked about. What about if there's a serious something that happens with the child and really changes, it can really change the dynamic of things.
What does that have to do with sickness with them too? You mean?
Yeah, if you're married and you have children, so what happens with the children can really affect what happens in the marriage.
I mean, we see that happen as well. Say if the death of a child or something happens to the child where, especially a mother, she's going to give everything she have to be able to support that kid and to pour her life into that situation without being mindful that it's somebody else. You have a spouse that you still have to remember that exists. And we watch it happen. And so many little things that can destroy the relationship that we don't know about because we think we're doing the right thing. And it feels like the right thing. You got a child. That's who I'm taking care of.
Yeah,
you know? So, yeah.
And so, but like you said, now you're taking care of this child, but look what has creeped up on you.
Yeah.
You've distanced yourself from, you know, the one you're supposed to be one with.
Yeah.
You know, how do you get back from that?
You said, how do you get back from that? I mean, if you're believers, then you have to be able to transition. I always say adjust and repair. You have to always be able to understand what's first. What's first? You got to do the right thing no matter what. And so just know that the reason we're in that situation to begin with is because it's out of order. And the moment you bring order back and put what belongs in this position, in this place, things always start back flowing.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
And so, you know, if something happened where one, you know, maybe you use the example of the mother, it could be the father, whoever, but let's say one more than the other is just really sinking everything into the sickness of the child or the sickness of the other person. When you talk about this, and you know, it's going to help that marriage and that family if the two decide to pull their weight together.
Yeah.
Let's work this thing together. Let's spend, you know, as much as we can equal time, so that we still, as best we can, have time for the relationship. If it's an overwhelming need of total time and attention on the child, hey, let's not like while you're with the child, that I'm off somewhere on by myself. Maybe we start engaging in things with the marriage around that child. You know, where we're together with the child doing things together, because you know marriage doesn't work if the two are not together. And if the two are not totally engaged in, you know, what's going on there together. What was that? You mentioned something else in sickness. You went down, you went bang, bang, bang.
No, I did the one that was unhealthy, the one we do to ourselves, and the one that happens like we just talked about.
Yeah, that was two.
Yeah.
You said them so fast, but I know you mentioned like 3 or 4.
They were just all in the same category.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's everything with sickness.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so it's tough to do everything, but your attempt with an obvious willing spirit is going to make all the difference in the world. So the whole thing about when sickness becomes an overwhelming hardship in a marriage, you got to be willing. Each person, the husband and the wife, you both have to be willing to come together, to commit, to help one another for whichever one is sick, child is sick, whatever it may be. Here's another one. Someone close to the family, like a mother, a father or something. You know, let's say you have a mother that's a widow or something. She's by herself now, taking care of herself. Now she gets sick, and there's not a lot of other people in the family, or other brothers and sisters or siblings or something like that. And so, you know, you kind of you're the responsible one, and now you take on, you know, this marriage takes on, you know, the hardship of caring for their parent. You know, that's something else that can be a drain on your particular marriage if you're not aware. And you're like, cause okay, let's say it's your mother. You know, a person might think, you know, well, that predominantly care that's going to happen is going to be by you because that's your mother. But it doesn't have to be.
Mm-hmm. No, it doesn't.
Doesn't have to be.
Yeah, you just have to have balance. Everything you have to have balance. And it's like, if it is just you and you back and forth always, that maybe that you have to have the discussion with your spouses, can they come here? You know, because if not, then it's causing us to be separated even more. Right. You have to sit down together and create a plan and pray that you're not married to someone that is completely against it, you know, because that would be selfish on their part, you know, because that's your parent. And so we have to be mindful of all of that. But no, you cannot like completely devote your whole life where you now completely are totally neglecting what's first.
Right.
And so balance. You got to be able to have those conversations, basically.
All right, good, sweet. All right, next, depression. What's that mean?
I don't know, you tell me.
I mean, you said, I can't tell you what meant.
No, I know, but yeah, you go for that one.
So depression, everyone goes through the blues at times in their lives. And one thing I will say about depression, we know that there are people that are, clinically proven or diagnosed is a better word, clinically diagnosed with depression. But I've said for a while, and I still firmly believe that there are more people that are in depression, or at least dip in and out of depression, than have been clinically diagnosed. I mean, especially with the rise of social media that allows people to focus on what looks to be the best parts of other people's lives and relationships, and then now they look at their lives and try to do some type of comparison and like, oh, I can't go there, or I can't buy that, or I can't do that, or my relationship doesn't seem to be like theirs. Or, well, I'll give you an example. Somebody just posted a picture on Facebook of this, they're going this date and they're smiling, everything's all hunky-dory, and they put it out there for the world to see, and as soon as they snap the picture and posted it, then they get into an argument or whatever, or they're not even doing it. Well, you can't judge how somebody's doing based upon pictures that they post.
But that's the system that is created.
And what it does is it creates, if people are not careful, it creates a level of depression in other people, because now it's like TV. I want the life of TV.
Yeah.
And so now social media is almost like another TV. I want the life of the lovebirds. I want the life of this couple. I want the life of that couple. They have a lot of money. I want their life. And it's not working the same for me. I don't have the same resources. I don't have the same. And if you're not careful, that causes you to dip. That can cause you to dip in and out of depression. Now we know depression in a clinical level is even a lot more serious.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because if you're depressed because you don't have things, then shame on you. Because that almost defeats the people who are actually from trauma and from the things that they have been through, that have to live through that, and things like that. So once again, most of the time that we are dealing with those type of things come from our thought life and the way we perceive and the things that we desire that we cannot tangibly touch yet. And because we can't do that, then we get all screwed up. It's like you're meditating, and it's like so many Christians don't even read their Bible. I would be depressed too right now if I didn't have God, if I didn't read my Bible, if I wasn't going in and listening to certain music and stuff, because guess what? This world is screwed up. And so I don't care how cold you are as a believer, how much work you putting in, you got to keep doing it, because this ain't a time to take no breaks. It's just not a time. And so this is the time, if you're going to be depressed, you depressed. Because you think you're going outside, you can't go outside. You think the mask is over, you got to put it on again. You think the virus is over, it's skyrocketed again. You think you're going to be able to go on vacation, you can't go on vacation. It's like, so if you take all that in and process it in a negative way, you're going to be messed up.
Yeah.
You're going to be so messed up. And so a person who has not been diagnosed with the unquote chemical imbalance and things like that, you can literally read yourself, pray your way, and change the way you think your way right out of depression.
Absolutely.
Because you really don't have to be in that position.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the source of your thinking, because if you said read the Bible and things like that, and listen, you can't just read the Bible, you have to understand the scriptures. You got to understand, because if you can be reading it, but if you don't have a real understanding, a real good teaching, being led right to understand the scripture and context and the historical levels of it versus the truth of it. When I say truth, I mean the promises of it, just the different levels of it. The apocalyptic views, all the different. If you don't really understand it, then you can be reading it and still find yourself depressed, because you could be like, well, why this isn't happening for me? And I saw it happen for Abraham, or somebody. I saw what happened for some. Why is it not happening for me? And so you have to really understand it. Because one of the things that's going to help you, that needs to help you get out of depression or stay out of depression, is understanding that God is letting God be your source of happiness. Not letting things be your source of happiness.
Other people.
Not letting meeting with other people and traveling and things like that. Hey, listen, I miss those things too. Those things are great. Those are great pluses and great bonuses. But they can't be the source of your happiness. Because if they're the source of your happiness, look what happens when they get taken away.
Oh my God.
Now all of a sudden you're depressed.
I mean, I think about, she grew up, I don't know what kind of Christian home she grew up in. We're thinking about Tamar. She tried to commit suicide today or whatever, and it's in the hospital. They haven't reported if she's okay or not, you know, and I'm just thinking about watching her, watching her on television, and just that whole, how she lost her family before, her husband, kid, I mean, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, my heart just went out to her today that, whatever that thing is that drove her to that point, of hopelessness, it's just the saddest thing,
Yeah, and let's say, certain people have achieved a status of fame.
Yeah.
They got the blue check mark. They got a lot of followers. They're on TV. They're, all this or whatever. And then others, they sitting there ascribing to be that.
Yeah.
And they mess around depressed because they're not that.
And them people,
but don't understand that those people that are that, it can be depressing because you're trying to keep that.
Yeah.
And if you're here today and gone tomorrow, then now you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not the it anymore. I'm not the hot thing anymore.
And it happens with football players and basketball. The moment they are no longer that, or in that, they almost go into a state of depression. Why? Because you didn't really ever have true identity. You had identity in something, but you didn't have identity in who created you, because if you did, when you was off the field or off the TV show, you can still thrive. But you're not thriving because you're so busy thinking about, oh my God, I'm not that no more. I'm not famous and I'm not popular. We go from elementary, middle school trying to be popular, and then you be 40 years old and still trying to be popular.
Yes.
It's like the same thing, because identity is only given to you by God. And if you don't root your identity in that, and then the others is just bonuses and extra money, then when it's all taken away from you, who are you? Who are you?
And so now we've talked about all these different ways of that depression can show up, versus clinical depression versus just dipping in and out of depression by not knowing the true identity. But now, when you have these areas or levels of depression, it can become a hardship on marriage.
Absolutely.
Because if it's one person, they can look at the other person and say, it doesn't matter what I do. I can't make them happy. It doesn't matter.
The problem, the word you just said, how can I make them happy? People really think they can do that, because if you happy and we're having fun, then I'm happy because I'm happy, but most people think it's coming from the other person, and the other person needs to give them that happiness, when it's impossible to do.
Yeah, it's impossible, but as a spouse, you want to see your spouse happy.
Yeah, you want to be a nice person, a good person, those things, so it won't rob them.
Right.
Those things that you bring to the table. But if the only time you can be happy is because of that, then that's when it becomes a problem.
Yeah. And so it becomes a hardship, especially over a projected period of time.
Yeah.
If this person is just down, depression, you can find people in depression, they begin to stop taking care of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care about how they used to look. They don't care about their surroundings, being neat or clean.
That's when you know people off.
Yeah.
Especially if they used to be that person.
Yeah, they used to be neat and tidy and clean and all this kind of stuff. And now they don't care about their appearance. They don't care about their smell. They don't care about their surroundings. They don't, you know what I'm saying? And then you're married to this other person who's trying to continue to be who they were. Now they're like, how do we get them help? How do we get them out of that?
Yeah, and then the hardest part is when you tell them that they need help, or maybe counseling or something. Now you got another war and a whole nother fight.
I ain't depressed.
Yeah, and with us as people of color, we think that means I'm crazy. It's something wrong with me. When other races that grew up with therapy. They grew up thinking that, hey, that's the thing to do if you're going to be a better person. we fight it and go through so much over so many over years, that's something that could have been fixed and dealt with early on.
Yeah.
And it's like you fight it until you end up with nothing.
And this is the reason why therapy and things like that are good, is because when you're not getting therapy, and then and you would necessarily need therapy if you were open to talking.
Yeah.
Talking
and honest with yourself.
Talking honestly to your spouse, to others in your small groups and things like that are trusted sources.
Yeah.
If you're open to talking about being what's real out, man, listen, if you're watching and you've been through something in your marriage and it's caused you to be down, maybe you're down on yourself, because how did I let that happen? How did I go through that? Or whatever, maybe you're depressed. And you don't talk about it, you can't get free from it. And I'm talking about when you not even just, I'm not talking about it saying, I admit, okay, I was depressed, or I am depressed, or I admit I cheated, whatever the case may be. Not just admitting it, but I'm talking about going deep into your feelings on where was you at when you started thinking like that, when you got off track in your thinking, what was going on, where were you thinking? I mean, you got to talk about all that.
Or if somebody else can pull it out of you, you got to be willing to talk about it.
You got to be willing to talk about it.
Because sometimes people can't just think of those things on their own.
No.
But if you're in a conversation and you still quiet and you know you need help, guess what? You're going to be stuck and you're going to stay in that situation. Because if you can't share, can't nobody help you.
Yeah, and it's so sad because people think that they think they're protecting something. I don't want people to know my vulnerabilities. They're protecting. I don't want people to know how weak I was you think is weak or something.
But that was done to us. That was created where you don't have no faith if you admit you feel some kind of way. You're not really as close to God as you thought you was because you had a moment of being depressed. I mean, those are the things early on that was told to you. And all it did was screw Christians up.
That's
where
crazy.
They can't get help and they don't want to share any of their business. They think it's business, but it's destroying them.
Right.
And it's like, okay, so we were told, you did that, you ain't got no faith. You need to go back and become stronger in the Word of God. Yeah. And it's just like, how about I'm saying this because I'm strong enough to tell you.
Yeah.
And I can get free and be on the other side of this if I got somebody I can tell. Yeah. And it's like, how do we as believers take other people's stuff and their weaknesses and the pain that they're feeling that they share and use it against them? That's the sickest thing to me is when you take somebody else's stuff and to try to destroy them with them, then they're not the problem, you're the problem.
Yeah.
And it's like we really need to change because what we have done is put people in bondage and locked them up in these prison cells where they can't get free because to say I need help means that I'm not where I need to be. No, you need to say it so you can become and get to where you want to be. But we have just totally taking that away from people.
Maybe this will free you up. A lot of people that watch us are Christians, are believers. Okay, so you know a little bit about the Bible, and you know there's a king in the Bible that God said was a man after my own heart, King David.
Got screwed up.
If you read the Psalms, especially the first half to 2/3 of the Psalms, and it was not all written by David, but there was a lot. I believe that there was times where he was floating in and out of depression.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, I just read the first verse and he was like, God is worthy to be praised and he's so amazing. In the very next verse, they're after me and they're trying to kill me. Where are you guys? You've left me. Oh, I'm by myself. I'm just like, okay, David, are you schizophrenic? What's wrong with you? Yeah. And it's like you're reading this and you just got to be able to understand what you're reading. But it's like almost kind of like Job. But Job had a real reason.
Yeah. But I think David had real reasons too. Here I am trying to do right and I'm being hunted by somebody I didn't do nothing against. You know what I'm saying? But what is that what that should show us is that God's okay with us being real.
Yeah.
And if God's okay with us being real, saying, God, I'm frustrated today. God, where you at? I'm calling out on you, where you at or whatever. But I know you're wonderful. I know you. If God's okay with us being like that and whatever, then guess what? We as people should be okay with one another being like that. As husband and wife, we should be okay.
Jesus called Peter the rock when he knew he was going to deny him.
Absolutely.
Because he saw his potential. He saw as he developed what he was going to become.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, but we don't let people do that.
There's nothing about being married, especially men, but there's nothing about being married or nothing about being a believer that takes away from you being human.
No.
You're human. And you have
emotions,
you have emotions.
Feelings.
You get frustrated, you get down, and not every time you get down means you're depressed.
No.
You know, and listen, I'm not saying that David was clinically depressed. I'm not necessarily saying like that, but if you read it enough, you will see. I don't know. He was floating in and out of there, but what God said, he was a man after his own heart. Mm-hmm. So God couldn't have been angry with him as long as you come back to the source of who God really is. Listen, man, you know what's going on in this marriage right now, man. This is not what I don't like this. I mean, we ain't on our best right now. We ain't clicking on all cylinders right now.
Why are you afraid to tell somebody that?
But I know that I love this person, and I know that they love me, and we both love God, and we're going to work. We're going to figure out and work. We just need help. We need to work to figure out. Be willing to do that. That's okay.
Yep, I know we have in the past.
Yeah.
Back in the day, we'd be like, hello, open your door.
Absolutely.
Let us in.
We went to mentors that did that. We have our own counselor.
Yeah.
We paid to go to counseling and things like that. Listen, when you sink and dive into marriage and family like we do over the past few years, listen, there's going to be even more levels of attack that the enemy's going to try to use on us.
Try.
You know, notice I said try. He doesn't have power or authority over us.
No.
But he'll try to get us off and things like that. But we're willing to fight, to go to somewhere, to spend our money, whatever we need to do. Why? Because this is important.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's life or death. You know, you signed up for it to be all the way to the end. So why wouldn't you fight for it? You know, it's just like, we understand because this is what we do. Because if it's in your thoughts and that's what you believe you shouldn't do, then that's how you function.
Yeah.
And so we understand whatever a man thinks, that's what he's going to do.
And so we're trying to help change the way you think. We're trying to renew your mind the way you think it. Man, it ain't cool to be drowning. Let's talk about the marriage. Drowning and not. If you were a real person in a pool and you couldn't swim and you were drowning, what would you be doing?
You would be fighting to live.
And you'd be yelling, help, help, somebody help me, I can't swim. You going crazy, help me. You fighting, you're doing everything you can.
And most of us signed up in a marriage that didn't have a clue.
Didn't have a clue.
Didn't take the road maps. Nobody showed us a road map. Didn't really know the word, so you couldn't follow the road map. You had all of those reasons, but we don't fight like that for that.
And if you were drowning in real life and you yell for help, why wouldn't you yell for help in your marriage if your marriage is drowning?
Man.
And listen, every Friday night we're offering you a lifeline.
Yes.
Right here, every Friday night we're throwing a lifeline out for you to grab a hold and
your tool belt right now should be half full.
Yes.
You know, where you can pull something out of your tool belt and be like, no, let's apply these principles. Let's apply what we sat down and learned. Don't just be looking at something and don't apply it. That's like knowledge not being applied. It doesn't work.
And there's really no legitimate reason with technology today for anybody to really, really, really be drowning in their marriage. No. There's really no excuse. I'm not even sitting there saying like we're the only people who are giving good biblical advice concerning marriage.
One of our pastors, you can listen
Pastor
to
Jimmy Evans, been 40 years been giving this type of resources and things like that. I mean, you got the whole Marriage to Today team, the XO podcast team, the Naked Marriage podcast. So I'm not even saying that we're the only people, but with all that's out there, make sure that you're listening to people that are giving good, godly, biblical advice on your marriage to save you from drowning. Yeah. And don't just be listening to the loudest voice.
Yeah, or saying this is what I would do.
Yeah.
What like that, just only their opinion. Our opinions alone can't save your marriage.
Right.
You know, so it has to be able for you to apply principles. You have to have knowledge. You have to have information. And then you have to apply those things so your life can change. If it's not changing, you're not trying to do something, or it's only one person fighting for it.
Exactly. And you got to on purpose do this. You got to on purpose listen to this show. On purpose listen to these other shows. Because when you're not doing this on purpose, what you don't realize that unknowingly you're listening to all these other people that you're scrolling and listening to, and they're throwing relationship stuff out there at you, and you're hearing it. You're watching TV, you're watching movies, and you're seeing it, and all this stuff is infiltrating into the way you think, and that stuff don't work.
No, and I hear more believers quote worldly advice
sources
and worldly sources than they do coming from a godly place in the godly principle. And it's just like anything you do outside of Christ is just temporary. It's only going to work for you for a brief moment because it's going to die out. And so it's like, people's like, well, I ain't trying to be deep in my, okay, we're not trying to get you to be deep. We're trying to get you to work. We're trying to get you to last. We're trying to get you to be able to be a beacon of light to the world, to see a marriage, to see an example for them to be able to have hope. Because right now, people need hope.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the marriages are not just in the world, the believers' marriages are falling apart. People are like checking out. People are depressed. People are violent, doing things that they never thought they would do. And so this thing is being shaken up. And so I said last night on Facebook, choose this day who you gonna serve. Because if you don't, you're going to miss out on something beautiful, even in the midst of chaos. And so you're gonna have to choose. And if you choose right, your marriage will work.
It will work. All right, so that's been our show for today. I think we went about 35 minutes. That's good. Anything you want me to address?
I got it. It's not.
You want me to read something?
I mean, it's just a couple of two things.
All right. You want me to start in a particular place?
Wherever you want.
I'm really fun. I've got here Job, David, the prophets, and many of the Bible patriarchs suffered from depression. Mm-hmm. You know, right there. I
thought that was good.
Many of the Bible patriarchs suffered from depression. I mean, you can't help it because
Elijah hiding. I'm scared. I'm depressed.
Because you're like, God, I know you're all powerful, and I know you think, but then when you go through something, it's like, where you at? Where you at? But that's this thing about, especially this American Christian philosophy that now once I get born again, once I become a Christian, everything's good. Everything is going to always work. Every time I pray, God's going to do what I said.
Instantly.
That's not what happened. If all the patriarchs went through times of suffering and times of where are you, God, things like that, what makes you think that you're not? Mm-hmm. Even Jesus did. I mean, who do you think that you are, that everything that you say is going to happen the way you say it? God's world, God's universe don't evolve around you. It evolves around His master plan. Yeah. And His ways and thoughts are bigger than ours. Got here, communication is the key. And each member of the marriage needs to speak up or it will build into something nobody will recognize and everyone wants to get away from. Yeah. You want to say something on that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. That's some good stuff. We definitely always want to thank those that are listening for chatting in and chiming in and after the show you chime in, my wife will we'll look at that stuff, respond to that stuff. Maybe there's topics that you want us to address. Shoot that in there, and it can be maybe future episodes that we'll talk about. But this depression thing got a little more serious than I thought. but
Yeah.
this is where we live.
That's
This is where we at right now.
People are battling.
Yeah, people are battling. So it's been a pleasure talking about it. It's been a pleasure being with you all. It's always a pleasure on Friday night sitting with my wife talking about marriage and family. And man, we just hope that this is helping. Again, share. It's free. Share the information. Get it out there to more people so we can try to help save more marriages.
Yes.
All right. Any final words? All right. Well, again, this has been Dr. James Byrd, one half of your dynamic duo. And of course, my lovely wife, who goes by the name of
Dr. Angel Byrd.
And together we are
The Lovebirds.
We will see you next Friday night, all the way live.
But I got a prescription, yeah, for this love pain. Anybody got a pill like a